Good morning, grade 12. Today, I am going to record a session about a discussion in anaerobic respiration. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. If you go to your Moodle, we are now in session 4, no, the fermentation. What are the learning targets that we are going to learn today? Is that first, you are going to describe what is fermentation as anaerobic energy production. What you're going to do, you can also identify the processed products and reactants of lactic acid fermentation and also in alcoholic fermentation, because there are two types of fermentation, lactic acid and alcoholic fermentation. All right. So before I begin with my lesson proper, I want you to take a look at this YouTube link that I embedded here in the Moodle, because this is a very interesting person. He is the current Guinness World Record holder for longest apnea, no, without oxygen. So he was able to hold his breath for around 24 minutes and 3 seconds. So wow, is that possible? I know that you can hold for that. So we get to understand after learning the aerobic cellular respiration, how can this be possible in his own body? Because we know that it is fatal for around pila lang ka minutes that we don't have oxygen, because we learned that in our ATC that oxygen is the finite electron acceptor. So I want you to research about this person. Take a look at this. Imagine he can hold his breath for 24 minutes, and that is very interesting. How is that being possible? No? So that is possible, and that is our topic for today, without the presence of oxygen. Right? So here in our discussion, I will focus and use my PowerPoint. All right, so here I will present. So here okay, so we will be talking anaerobic cellular respiration. This is my cover slide. So, diba, in the previous sessions that we had, we talked and we dissected how these byproducts are being converted. No, so at the beginning there is a glucose, and we take in oxygen in the ATC. And when did we converted the CO2 or give off the byproduct? In the pre-Krebs and Krebs, and the water is a byproduct in the ATC, and the maximum yield of 38 is dissected into 2 for glycolysis, 2 for Krebs, and 34 in ATP. I hope you did not forget that one. So I showed you already this concept map. We are done here. Glycolysis, aerobic, that is Krebs and ATC. We're done with this one discussion. So our focus for today's discussion is anaerobic, that is fermentation, meaning anaerobic is without oxygen, and that is fermentation, 2 types, alcoholic and lactic acid. So focus your mind here. All right? Now, what happens if you don't get enough oxygen? Katong kang Alex, no, nga Guinness World Record holder nga for 24 minutes, he is not inhaling oxygen. What happens inside his body? Our body is quite brilliant, no, because it's shifted into a process of fermentation. Remember that the pyruvate is the end product in glycolysis, right? Kaya wala pa man to oxygen sa glycolysis, katong splitting of the sugar into 2 pyruvate acid. So this pyruvate can either go into aerobic or can either go into anaerobic, meaning absent, no presence of oxygen, and will proceed to fermentation. So when there is no oxygen, mo automatic siya of fermentation. And in our body, asa man na mahitabo, no? Meaning, no oxygen, no mitochondria for bacteria, and that is very minimal ra kaayo ang ATP. So when having known this one, we know that fermentation is not really for energy production for our cells, no? Kita, human beings cannot survive. All the large animals cannot survive without oxygen, because we know already we are maintaining diba, kung the larger you are, the trillions of cells you have, more numerous. So imagine how demand for energy currency you have if you are a bigger person, right? So we cannot survive with that one. We cannot survive for just fermentation alone, no? Now, in fermentation, okay, there is alcoholic and there is lactic acid fermentation. Example that products produced in alcoholic are alcohol, no? Kanang mga wine that we are enjoying, the bread, I will explain that further. And in lactic acid are in animals, this is the cause why we got cramps, we got muscle sores, kanang pamaulan ka, no? That is because of the production of the lactic acid, okay? I will explain further. Again, when we say lactic acid, in animals, ang katong pyruvate nga end product sa glycolysis, mahimo siyang lactic acid. In alcoholic fermentation, naay process ani ang yeast. Ang yeast is a bacteria. Yeast and bacteria convert that pyruvate into an alcohol, ethyl alcohol. So what you see here are the grapes, how that grapes become a wine, okay? And I explain further. So what you see here in this diagram is ako sang gi-cover, no? Gi-cover na ko ang alcoholic fermentation because we will talk first what is lactic acid fermentation. All right? So remember, pila to ka carbon molecule ang pyruvic acid or pyruvate? 3 C's, tulo ka carbon molecule. So kanang 3 carbon compound, okay, will act diha ang atuang NAD plus. The NAD plus, every time di matangtangan og carbon, the NAD plus will trap the electrons and it is the electron carriers now. Okay, kung walay oxygen, if not enough oxygen is present in animals, the pyruvic acid is converted to lactic acid, and this makes muscles fatigue and get sore. So tanawon nato diri na ang from C3, okay, di ba, pyruvate, glucose, then pyruvate, and mahimo na siyang, mao ni ang chemical formula for the lactic acid. 2C3H6O3, and pila ka yield of energy ang ma-produce? Only 2 ATP. Okay, so remember nga, if the glucose in the glycolysis mahimong pyruvate, kuan na siya og carbon dioxide and then lactic acid and then 2 ATP. So asa ni mahitabo or who in what part of our body is doing this when, like say for example, you are playing a sports and then you are running so fast and ang imong pagginhawa ba is dili kanang makaapas sa muscle contraction kay grabe man kaayo, no? So mo proceed na siya into fermentation. So that is why if you are playing kanang kalit-kalit na walay warm up, not well oxygenated ang imuhang muscles, mag-cramps ka, pamaulan ka, because that has plenty of accumulation sa imuhang lactic acid in your muscle cells. So again, this is, I hope that makes sense, ha? Kay that the cause of your muscle sores, the cause of your muscle fatigue is the accumulation of this lactic acid that will only happen if there is no enough oxygen. Okay, muna mahitabo sa atong mga muscles. Okay? In the bacteria, in anaerobic, meaning, ka-familiar mo anak ko mag-ferment og food ang inyong parents, wala na oxygen, is-sealed na nilang maayo. Say for example, maghimo kimchi, di ba? Very known kaayo ng atong sa Korean food nga kimchi. When they do a fermentation, ilahan nang i-close, di ba? Ilan nang i-set aside in a place without the presence of oxygen. And that bacteria acting on that food is doing a fermentation, a lactic acid fermentation. What are they doing is they are converting the pyruvic acid into a lactic acid. Okay? So this kanang taste ng aslong-aslong sa milk, sa yogurt, sa cheese, no, sa kimchi, because na sa atuang sa ilahang lactic acid nga byproduct nga na-convert sa bacteria. Okay? Actually, this is very healthy. Thankful ta sa bacteria because we have a healthy food, no? So, unsa man ang mga products sa lactic acid na food that are being produced from lactic acid fermentation. Okay? Di kay ko familiar ng sauerkraut. I think this is European kimchi, kabauta, kaning tempeh, natto, Japanese kefir, di kay ko on kombucha, soy sauce. Soy sauce is familiar nato na gamiton. And there are so plenty of vegetables, di ba, nga fermented, pickled. I love eating pickled vegetables also, mga spices, kana pong sili nga gi-ferment, very healthy na siya because that will help your biome in your gut, no? It will make a balance of a good bacteria and a bad bacteria. Mubito ng lactobacillus, Yakult, no? That is because of the lactic acid fermentation. Di ba ang Yakult kay aslong-aslong niya na item is ang kanang pagkaaslong nga part sa Yakult, that is because of the lactic acid that is being converted by the lactobacillus bacteria. All right, so that is for lactic acid fermentation. Now we go to alcoholic fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation is another kind of fermentation. We're done with lactic. If alcoholic gani is ang glucose, okay, mo give off after the conversion, it will give off a carbon dioxide and an alcohol. Okay, this will provide also a very minimal energy yield, which is ATP. In bacteria, specifically done by the yeast. Okay, so kung kinsa tong hilig na, if you have parents who are into baking, this will explain why the bread will rise, why we need yeast when we bake bread, because the giving off of CO2 from the yeast is the one actually making it rise, okay, for the baking. So when you see alcoholic fermentation, ang katong C3 from the glycolysis, itong tulo ka carbon molecule from the glycolysis, that will give off a CO2 that will cause the rising, right? And ang mahabilin adto is ang 2 carbon molecule na lang, di ba? So that releasing of carbon na ay energy electrons can need to be trapped by the NAD+. Okay? Ang katong 2 carbon molecule na lang, mahabilin na nga ethyl alcohol. So here, if you're going, the pyruvic acid is converted to alcohol plus the carbon dioxide plus the 2 ATP. So mauni how the alcoholic beverages is being done, alcoholic cars and the baking industry, because it uses the giving off of yeast of CO2 to make the bread rise. So if you're going to look at this equation, the glucose is, di ba, splitted into 2 pyruvate. The pyruvate will become now a 2 carbon molecule, C2H6O, okay, plus duha ka CO2 and minimal yield of 2 ATP, okay? So these are the products, sample products of alcoholic fermentation. I know, you know very much, of course, what is an alcohol. No, alcohol comes in different form. Na ay kanang draft beer, na ay wine, no, root beer, no. And another example aside from alcohol is the bread, the baking industry, the making of the bread. Okay, actually, class, the fermentation is a very big part of industry. Okay, because of this classical biotechnology, dako kayo na siya future sa atong food industry, and this has been used for so many years, no, for centuries. So ang ilaha ang atuang capitalize diri ang action sa mga bacteria. Now, as the waste product of the bacteria, we use that in the processing of our own food. Okay, and this is a very big business. If you will want to know more about fermentation, how is it being done, then you can make a business out of it. Okay, how I wish in your PT research and entrepreneurship na ay maghimo og fermented food because this is a superfood. This is considered a superfood. Why? Because of its health benefits, and that has been studied and proven for so many times because it is improving the gut bacteria sa imuhang intestine, and that one has a very good benefit in especially in the immune system because the bacteria in the gut has its unique byproduct that they can convert, no, that will help or feed, no, our immunity also, the nutrients that we are needing to improve our immune system. Okay, so this is actually, they say, this is also proven already that it's antibiotic, anti-carcinogenic. So if you are into fermented food, eating fermented food product, then you have a very good diet, helping your body to stay healthy. So as what I have mentioned, fermentation is a very big business because kanitanan, no, whether it is a lactic acid fermentation or alcoholic acid fermentation, then you can have a business. Kanang mga remover, acetone, all the cleaning materials at home, no? The wine, the beer, you name it. There's so many types of product that you can make, no, using the fermentation method. So if you are into business, pohon, try and explore fermentation products. All right. So that's it for my discussion for this session. So what is next? What is next to be that you are going to do? I want you, after that discussion, there is a virtual lab yeast fermentation experiment that I want you to explore, this one, okay? Because if you're going to click on this, it will lead you to, okay, it will lead you to this. So I will click here and it will say start, okay? So there are the materials used, the flour. I want you to familiarize the process, the steps, the explanation about this, because this knowledge will really help you in your performance task, no, for the yeast fermentation. This will be, you anchor the questions that I gave in the questionnaires, in the worksheet. You can anchor your answers in this experiment. This will really help you. The factors, why is it like that? Then it will help you in the explanation. I hope you will check this one because it will help you. I posted this to help you to have a good score in the PP, second PP. All right, so that's it. It's this one, the self-assessment, and it's up to you if you're going to answer this, but I just post this to help you with the lesson assessment of your understanding. This YouTube videos, I posted this already, also for you as a supplementary material. All right. And then that's it for our session for mode B. So I know our schedule is affected, man. So I hope this will supplement the disruption of our schedule. Okay, so that's it for this morning. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.